All of us know that React re-renders a component when its state changes, props change, or context updates. There's also a fourth reason, which is probably the worst one. Re-renders can cascade from parent to child, which means one small change at the top can ripple across your app. So let's look at the simple example. We have the main app component here and a child component. This child component is used inside this app component's JSX. The app component also has a state and it has a button that is going to increment this state on every click. Now changing the count updates both child A and child B, even though neither one of them use the count. That's an unnecessary re-render, and in large applications, this is going to add up quickly. So to actually figure out which parts of your app are re-rendering unnecessarily and what's causing those re-renders, folks normally use Profiler inside React DevTools. So what I'll do is run this app and we'll go inside the browser. What I want to look at is the Profiler tab, which comes with React DevTools. Make sure you install it in your browser before actually doing this. So it's a simple extension that you'll find in any browser store. So you have this profiler here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is record the interaction with this app. I'll click the increment button like 4 or 5 times and we'll see what information we get. So to start the recording in this profiler section, you have to click on this button. And I'm going to click on this increment button like 3 to 4 times, 5 times, and let's stop this interaction. Now we get something over here, but let's individually go through each section. So we have this flame graph area and a ranked chart area. Both of them represent the interaction, but in different ways. Flame graph has a hierarchy where you see the parent and its children and how long each one of them took to render. So you see that app component took about 1.1 milliseconds out of the total 2.4 milliseconds that the entire app took to render. And you have the other two child component renders. One of them took 0.5 milliseconds and the other one took 0.3 milliseconds. Now ranked view on the other hand is going to show you components sorted by render cost. So the slowest one would be at the top and the fastest one at the bottom. So since app component took the most amount of time to render, it's at the top. And you can see both the child components in the same ascending order listed in this ranked chart. I normally use the ranked view more because I want to figure out what all components took more time to render. Normally when building things, we kind of know the underlying component hierarchy. So I don't use the flame graph that often, but yeah, occasionally to see the render propagation, I take a look at it. I've bought the DevTools at the bottom because I also want to show you this right section. This essentially covers some metadata about the entire render cycle. So when it says immediate priority, it means React considered this interaction to be urgent, likely caused by a user interaction. It normally treats user interactions as high priority over state updates. Clicks are considered high priority because ideally you would not want the user to be stuck on your application because state updates has blocked the main thread. So priority is given to all of these interactions that make the app appear as if they're not buggy, they are smooth, and all the state updates are actually considered as non-high priority. Non-high priority. So I have a separate video on two of React's hooks, use transition and use deferred value. They are not exactly related to this, but the main idea behind those hooks is to prioritize user interactions. If I'm trying to search something inside an input field, I do not want the state update to block that interaction. I do not want a jittery or a laggy experience in the search itself. It's completely fine if the state updates after a while, but I do not want the UI to be blocked in any way. So that's why these clicks or these search inputs, all of those events are considered to be high priority. So over here, we have immediate. You'll also see other priorities like idle, which is essentially low urgency. All kinds of background work come under this idle priority. Then there's user blocking, which is higher priority but not urgent. Again, the example that I mentioned wherein you're typing in something inside an input, that is considered to be user blocking. So yeah, you'll see a bunch of values in this priority section. We get immediate here because React considered this interaction to be urgent, most likely caused by a user interaction. So the second one, which is the committed section, tells you in the recording timeline when the update was committed. So from the point you started recording, The update happened 1.9 seconds after that. In this particular example where we have literally a handful of components, this wouldn't mean much, but in larger applications and larger recording sessions, it becomes easier to trace multiple commits and updates. Render duration tells you the total time React spent in rendering all the components in the commit. So you can see here that it in total took 2.4 milliseconds, but this actually covers a lot more than the rendering time for each component. So the render time for each component added together will not be equal to the total render time. So if you see here, 1.1 milliseconds, 0.5 milliseconds and 0.3 milliseconds, this should be about 1.9 milliseconds in total. It's not equal to the total time, which is 2.4 milliseconds. The reason why it's not equal to the total time is because there are other things that happen behind the scenes. If the render time is high consistently, you'll have to look at your graphs to see which component is taking up the most amount of time and investigate deeper. So here we know that app component is taking like the highest amount of time here, but in an application that's larger in size, you'll see a lot of components in this ranked tree. And since it's listed in a specific order wherein you see the slowest component at the top, you can then go deep down and see why that is the case. Then the what caused this update section tells you which component triggered the render. Unfortunately, it doesn't always cover the entire picture. It gives you a very basic info which anyone with basic React knowledge would know. I don't think context updates or effects are even covered in this section. So it's just a helpful starting point which you can use to further debug any potential issues. In the general settings of this extension, you also have this option that you can enable. This lets you see in real time what all components re-render on a specific interaction. So if I am here and I click on this increment button, you'll see that it tells you what all components inside your app re-rendered. So the app component re-rendered, and along with that, both child components also re-rendered. So this is like a quick handy tool that you can use, that you can enable to see what all components re-render during what kind of interactions. You can also use React Scan to again go through the same experience and see for yourself which one you prefer over the other. Let me also know whether you want a separate video on React DevTools. I'd recommend you to play around and see how things work. It might feel a bit overwhelming at the beginning, but once you get a hang of it, it's fairly easy to use. So earlier when I mentioned props triggering re-renders, it can actually be quite subtle. Even a tiny mistake like passing an unstable function can cause re-renders. So let me show you this with the help of an example. I have an app component and an input component. This input component is passed inside this app component's JSX. It has a prop on change and it takes this handle change as its value. Now every time the app renders, it's going to create a new handle change function. So input is also going to re-render even if nothing visually changed. On every render, a new handle change instance gets created and input component thinks it's a new function altogether. And yes, it is, but the content is all the same. So there's no point in re-rendering the input component, even if the function reference changed, because it's functionally the same. So what we can do here to optimize this is use the useCallback hook. So now that I have this inside useCallback, it's not going to change the function reference across re-renders, and it's not going to ideally trigger a re-render for this input component, but that is actually not the case. There is a caveat here which I'm going to cover in the later part of this series, where I'll actually cover memoization deeply, all kinds of hooks, use memo, use callback, even react.memo, which is actually a key part in this example. I'm going to cover that in that video, so do subscribe for that. Then we move on to state management with context, and context actually has a hidden cost to it. It very subtly is going to drag your performance down even without you knowing it. I agree that context is great for sharing values across the app, but misusing it can kill performance, and more often than not, it is misused. So you should not be using React context for storing state that updates frequently. I mean, you obviously can, it's not going to give you any errors, but take a look at this example. So you have this toolbar component. It has a theme button that's going to toggle the theme for you. And there's an unrelated component as well. It has nothing to do with the theme, but it's there. It's there inside the toolbar component. And the entire toolbar is actually part of this provider, the context provider. So anytime I update the content of the context inside this theme button, it's going to obviously change the value inside the context. And since the context is wrapping the entire toolbar component, this unrelated component will also re-render. It's not really using any part of the context inside it. Let's assume that it's not using anything. So if it's not using anything, then why is it still re-rendering? That's because React natively behaves that way, React context. Anything that's wrapped as part of the provider, it's going to trigger a re-render, and since the main top level component re-renders, everything below it will also re-render. That's how React behaves. So context definitely brings in that problem with it. And you can solve this problem with the help of other state management libraries like Zustand or Redux. They have the subscription model wherein only the components that subscribe to the actual store will be re-rendered if the content changes. Other components that do not really subscribe to any part of the store, they are going to remain unchanged, and there will be no re-render for those components. So again, we'll focus on this problem as well in the later part of the series. But yeah, there are other simpler ways of handling this as well. You can obviously split your context and memoize subtrees, which again will be covered in this series, so do not worry about that. So all of these performance challenges and bottlenecks, you have to track in some way. There are a certain set of performance metrics that you should be tracking. And to be very honest, there are a lot of them. If you go inside your Web Vitals or Lighthouse reports, you'll see a bunch of metrics that you have to look at. But I would recommend a few of them to optimize 90% of your application. So try focusing on a few of them, like let's say for instance FPS, so frames per second. This will basically tell you how smooth your application is in general. Then there's time to interactive, which is TTI. It gives you the initial responsiveness of your application. Then there's TBT, which is total blocking time. This covers all kinds of CPU hogs, so you'll have to look at that as well. And finally, memory. Memory is the most important. You have to check all kinds of memory leaks and see if there's any bloat that you need to clean up. So these 4 metrics I would recommend you to take a look at while you're building an application. And again, they should come as an afterthought. You should not start with these metrics. Once your application is built properly, only then look at these metrics. So quick recap, only when props or state or context changes, there will be a re-render along with the main top level component that's going to trigger a re-render throughout the entire component tree. So it's going to trickle down till the very bottom of the tree. React Profiler is a very good tool to check the real cost of each component inside your React app. Unstable functions or unstable values can cost a lot of wasteful memory usage because it has to be recomputed on every render, and hooks like useCallback or useMemo can solve that problem for you. Context again should be used carefully because any state update inside the context is going to trickle down to each and every component that's wrapped as part of the context provider. So you have to be very mindful of it while building your application. So that's enough chit chat for an introductory video. Starting from the next video, we'll cover each of these bits in detail, all hands-on, and see a few more strategies like lazy loading, optimizing bundle sizes, virtualization, hydration. There's a lot to cover. So if you like this type of content, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see similar content in the future. All right, I'll see you in the next one.